Hi there, this is Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez, and this is the Design Your Physician Life podcast brought to you by our Max Salary Mastermind, which is a personal and professional development program for physicians who want to learn more about entrepreneurship. Today, we're going to have an awesome guest, Dr. Kalpana Sundar. She will be talking to us about redesigning your life with and without medicine. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Design Your Physician Life podcast. I'm really excited because we have here, I think it was the best thing that I took out of a recent meeting, and that was getting to meet Dr. Kalpana Sundar. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Sundar. She's a transformational speaker, and I've been witness of that. She's a board-certified physician and surgeon, entrepreneur, and master-certified professional coach. She communicates and educates to empower professional women to reclaim control over their professional and private lives, present and future. Dr. Sundar graduated from Nova Southeastern University in 1996, like me, but not from Southeastern University. I did Med 96 in Puerto Rico, and she obtained her certification in ENT and facial plastic surgery. Immediately after her residency, she founded her own successful ear, nose, and throat practice and medical spa in San Agustin, Florida. A diagnosis of thyroid cancer in her first year of medical practice caused Dr. Sundar to reflect deeply on the balance of career and personal life. She struggled with burnout through her career and was inspired to reinvent herself to feel more fulfillment in her work. Although she has spoken professionally for many years about ear, nose, throat, and beauty topics, she always desired to communicate in a way that would inspire and motivate professional women to be their best in leadership, entrepreneurship, and in life. She has embraced her true passion to empower women through her talks on leadership, entrepreneurship, and mindfulness. She educates women on issues of beauty and balance in life through her articles on her website, and is also the author of the book that was just released this year, Beauty Unbound. So welcome again. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for that great introduction.
So we are the same. We're the same age. We are the same career path. We have very similar interests in terms of, transformation, being restless in what we do, and then looking for more, and then having an entrepreneurial interest. But not always it was like that, right? We spent years in medical school, going through that training and then making sure that we would obtain the best knowledge that we could for our patients. Before all that even happened, who decided to be a doctor? Was it like little girl Kalpana, or was like teen Kalpana, or was it later in life? How did that happen?
It was little girl Kalpana, because I was 5 years old. My father was ill one day, and the idea of my father being ill scared me. And that was at the point where I said, you know what, Daddy, one day I'm going to be a doctor, and I can get you better, and I'm going to help other people too. And it was this look on my father's face when I said those words that I knew I couldn't really go back at that point. And what was I saying? I was a 5-year-old. I didn't even really know what it entailed, but it sounded amazing. And I loved the idea of helping people. So I just went with it and continued on.
That's awesome. And has your father been able to witness this transformation into your first stage as a physician?
Oh, yes. He's still alive and kicking, and he just had a birthday. So he's been watching all of these transformations over the years.
That's awesome. Well, happy birthday, Daddy, right?
That's right.
So we have tons of things to talk about. You immediately went on from residency to open a clinical office. Like, you didn't go to employment and you opened a spa, right? So that's very brave compared to the rest, especially when physicians are coming out these days. And there's, unfortunately, for the first time, in the last few years, we've had that transformation where most physicians have been employed rather than owners of their own practice. Where did you find the inspiration to open your own practice from the get-go?
It was an interesting story because I was interviewing, and that wasn't my intention. Originally, I really just wanted to go work for somebody. So I was interviewing, and each practice I interviewed, I would find some things I liked about the way they did things, and then quite a few things I didn't like about the way they did things. And so that kept happening to me over and over again. And all of a sudden, there was a real need in that community in St. Augustine. Unfortunately, one of the physicians there had just passed away. So there was a real need for another ear, nose, and throat physician. So originally I went there thinking I was going to join one of the physicians there. He was much older and he could use some help. But then as I really started to go down that road a little bit further, I realized that there were too many differences between us because I was very much on cutting edge technology, electronic medical records. I wanted to do things all the new way, and he wanted to do everything. So originally my intention was to join this other physician. He was probably 25 years older than me, so he had been in practice quite a while. But the problem was that I was very interested in doing with new technology, new procedures, new medical records. EMR was just coming out. So I was interested in all of those things. And he really just wanted to do things the old way. So I already suspected that that may be a real big problem for us. And that was sort of when I decided that I was going to just try it on my own. And I knew nothing. I don't know how I actually did it, but I started interviewing for office managers. Luckily, I found an office manager who had run a cardiology practice. So she taught me a lot about the billing and everything. I just figured it out. It was a school of hard knocks.
That's amazing, because that's really a hard, let's call it a hugely worthy challenge, but more challenge than worthy at the beginning. It's so much work, and people think, I just finished my medicine, my medical school and my residency and probably a fellowship. And it can be even more work than that, opening your own practice. But the difference I see in that is that it's so rewarding, right? When you have your own practice and you don't have, like, as you say, if you want certain technology, you can just ask the board and the board is you, right? So
Exactly.
then you decide and then it comes and becomes your own. So how long were you in that practice for?
Almost 20 years.
The same practice, the same place.
The same place. So I always say it's a double-edged sword, because you're the key decision maker and then you're the key decision maker, because if you make the wrong decision, it's on you. But at least you get to design a practice in the way that you liked. So for so many years I loved it, because I was able to add different procedures and create a practice where people could come in, get certain tests and everything done all in one shot, if I could arrange it that way. But then the insurance companies started to make that not a possibility, unfortunately. So I had to change my model. But that was my original intent: have people come in, get as many tests as they can get done, have all those things in one place. So I love that idea, but later we had to comply with what the insurance companies wanted us to do.
And you also had a spa there, right?
Yes,
That
that
location?
didn't happen. Yes, that didn't happen right away. The spa started a few years later, and that was because my patients were coming to me, my female patients, asking me if I knew how to do X, Y, and Z. And I was trained in all of those things, but I never really wanted to create a spa because I didn't know what the demand was, whether it was something that was necessary or not. So the patients kept asking me, and then I would just do the procedures, and then that part of it started to grow a little more as well. So then the one half of the building was my ear, nose, and throat practice. The other half became the medical spa.
Awesome. You eventually transition out of there. When we talk about transitioning in business, there's different exit strategies, right? And did you have a plan in mind? Is this something when you decided to exit your clinic that you had built for almost 20 years? Was that a plan that you did slowly, in the next 2-3 years, this is going to happen? Or did it come to you more as a surprise? I have to make this change. How did that transition happen for you?
Well, it was a little bit of both. I had already started to transition out, and I was building a freestanding medical spa with the goal of leaving the ENT, the insurance, because at that point, the insurance was making me crazy. I didn't like the fact that I didn't have the autonomy that I wanted, and they were controlling everything. So I thought, you know what? I like the medical spa aspect of this, so let me go ahead and build another medical spa. So I had started to build out another spa, and the goal was to transition slowly out of the ENT practice because I had mid-level providers and things. So, and then eventually go full-time into that medical spa. But then we had COVID. So that messed everything up. And it wound up becoming a situation where when my ENT practice was shut down for so long, I decided I was just going to walk out of it. So I literally left and walked out. And
You
then,
never sold the practice to anybody or anything?
well, you can't, it's hard to sell a practice when COVID hit. So there was, I wasn't planning on selling at that very moment. I was planning to transition out slowly. This process would take a year or two. Then I could start thinking about selling, et cetera, et cetera. That was the plan. But when COVID hit, I had to pivot and make a different decision. You know what? At the end of the day, I realized that money doesn't dictate everything. So I walked out. I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do. And it was a very scary time in my life. So my new place wasn't even built out 100% yet. So there was about a 6-month lag where the new place was being built and I had closed the other clinic. So it was a tough time, but then eventually the other clinic opened up. And interestingly enough, sometimes what you think you wanted isn't what you want. It's funny how that works in life sometimes.
There's quite a few things we're going to talk about that, right? In a second in life. So COVID hit, you're there, no patients, no clinic, nothing for 6 months, no other spa. Do you have any other sources of passive income? Because you
Luckily,
had also.
I just had to work out from my savings and, I was really busy. The funny thing was I was actually very busy getting that spa up and running. So that 6 months, it didn't really feel like a break because I was so busy getting everything ready for the new spa. So, it worked out okay. And it was probably good that I had that time, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, like right now I'm inside my clinic that we created and it takes so long just to get everything running. Within these two periods of time, you've also created skincare lines, right? I know that it's a passion of yours, creating skincare lines. Did you have that before COVID already running in your other practice?
Yes, I did. That skincare line I developed in 2014 was when it first launched. And that was because I saw all these products in medical spas and many of them were toxic. So after my cancer, I really started to be very, very religious about reading labels, understanding what was in my skincare, understanding what's in my food. So I became very involved in that. So that was why I wanted to create this skincare line that was non-toxic, it was cruelty-free, it only had good ingredients down to the preservative. Those things are very important to me, especially as a cancer survivor.
So talking about mixing that, like your passion being a cancer survivor and the interest, and then you need certain coaching and knowledge to create a skincare line, right? So that it's not only, I think that I'll mix these two things and voila, we have that. Like it goes through a process where you have to have your suppliers, vet them, making sure you're going to have the product that's to the quality that you want, with the consistency that you want, reliable, and also market that. So how did that happen for you for that skincare line?
Well, the first part was finding a good chemist because there was something specific that I wanted. I didn't want all these chemicals. I didn't want all these harmful ingredients. So I just really started online looking for chemists that would produce, products that were safe and non-toxic and with quality ingredients. So that's where I started. I interviewed several chemists, finally found one that I liked and expressed that this is what I'm looking to do. So it was many, many phone calls, lots of different ingredients that were discussed, and they would send me a sample. I tried numerous samples out, expressed what I liked, what I didn't like. I gave it to other people, I got their comments on it. So it was quite a process.
And how did you transition out of that skin line?
Well, the skincare line was still there, and we moved that over to the new spa. So I didn't really do a lot of external marketing because I already had my own clients in the med spa that were interested in it. So luckily I didn't have to deal with all the external marketing issues of it all.
Okay, awesome. There's that new spa that you created, and right now you have also transitioned away from that spa, and now you teach others about building spas, right?
Yes. So basically when COVID hit, it was up and down, it was so difficult, especially when there was a new strain of COVID. The people didn't want to come out again. So I struggled with that for almost a year. And then I just had to make the decision that I don't know that this is what I even want to do. It was so stressful. And I was looking at that point. It's funny how what you think serves you in one part in your life starts to not serve you. And then you make a different decision. But I do feel, looking back at my life as I connect the dots, each step led me closer and closer to the things that really make me happy. So the med spa seemed like a the next best step at that moment. But you know what I realized as I started to build it and as I was seeing patients, I was still stuck. I was still stuck in another location, but I was still stuck in an office, and I was still stuck in the same town. And that's, for me, has been a real problem in medicine. I'm always stuck, and I'm not that person that likes to stay stuck in one single location. I like to be somewhere else all the time. And I
share the feeling. I share the feeling.
I never owned that about myself. And that's what's interesting. I think as women and as physicians, we tend to put ourselves in a box. We may start in the box, but we keep ourselves in the box because we're afraid to be the outlier. We're afraid to say that we're different. And everybody else seemed happy doing what they were doing, going to the office every day, working from, 12-hour days, but I wasn't. And I didn't want to say that to anybody because I didn't want to be the outlier. So slowly but surely, I after that spa had to close down, I needed a change of scenery. So I just left, and I moved out of Jacksonville, because that spa was in Jacksonville, and I came down to West Palm Beach because I just needed a change of scenery. Well, it was here, when I got here, that I thought about opening, renting space out of another spa, doing the whole thing over again. And I realized that my body, the way it felt thinking about that it wasn't the right step for me. So I took another month or two and started to soul search. And I said, what is it that what makes me excited to be alive? Is it a spa? Is it an ENT practice? And unfortunately, the answer was none of those things. I've always had a passion for speaking. I've done media appearances, podcasts. I love all that stuff. So I said, you know what? I've always said one day I'm going to be a professional speaker. And then I realized, well, I'm 53 years old. When is that one day going to happen? Might as well be now. And that was when I decided that was what I was going to do. And it's interesting how there's been the least amount of resistance with that. And that's one thing that I've learned in life, is resistance is a real teacher. If there's so much resistance in something, perhaps you shouldn't try to beat down the door. You should maybe try to open another one.
That's really interesting, because that pivoting, people will ask sometimes, say, why are you changing so much? Or some people will say, oh, you're so creative, you're changing so many things. It's like you're really finding yourself, and you're finding new things about yourself, and then you're redefining what was in the back of your mind that you didn't know, and then you get a new piece of information, and you say, this is it, right? This is this is me, or this is what I've been looking, or that really didn't belong in my life in that way.
Exactly. Yeah. And how do we know unless we're a little fearless and try some new things? And you know what? Sometimes they feel good. Sometimes they don't feel good. But whatever it is, you learn something out of every single one of those experiences, which is why I keep making new experiences, because I'm learning more and more about myself. I learn what makes me happy. And what makes me happy is not to feel stuck, to feel free, and to be allowed to use my creativity in the ways that I enjoy. I would say, in a nutshell, I've recognized that makes me happy.
Awesome. Yeah, I identify with that feeling as well. So one of the things that I wanted to talk, which we really haven't discussed in this podcast, you at the same time that you're having all these professional transformations and you're going through your realizations of what makes you happy from a professional point of view, you have a very painful situation happening in parallel to this, and which you write about in your book, Beauty Unbound. For those who want to read more, please go to Amazon, right? The book is there in Amazon.
And Barnes and Noble as well.
And Barnes and Noble is, oh my goodness, your cover is so beautiful. Anyways, talking about Beauty Unbound, like, wow, that's so pretty. And we'll talk about writing a book in general, but inside the book, there's something that you share. And it's the story of your divorce that's happening also, at some point with all this story. So tell us about that part, when did you first realize, oh my God, this is really going to happen?
It was I probably had some inkling of it, probably 5 years even before it happened. Just because, and you know what? I didn't have a bad marriage. It was just that I didn't know who I was anymore. So people like to call it a midlife crisis. I like to call it a midlife awakening, because it's just that I woke up and I realized that I didn't even know who I was. I was so busy being a wife, being a mother, being a physician, being a lot of things to a lot of people, but I didn't know who I was. And unfortunately, part of me finding who I was involved me just going out on my own. And, it was a painful decision and it was a really hard decision. But when you're with somebody for a really long time, I don't know if there's really a way to extricate yourself from that and figure out who you are. Maybe for some people there is, but for me, I couldn't figure out how.
So for people who are listening to this and might have similar feelings, tell us a little bit about your love story, because there was a love story before then. And then how did you finally discover yourself?
So, and we met in college. So we've been together a very, very long time. And it's funny, you don't know yourself when you're 20 years old. So, and then we go through so many changes and we just go through all these processes, raising kids, at work, career, and somewhere in there, you lose yourself. And that's what I found out. If I didn't I wish I'd known differently. I might have actively been looking for myself during that time, but I didn't know any better. And gosh, there's no time when you're a physician to actively find yourself. You're in a hamster wheel and you're just going and you're just trying to keep your head above water. And that's pretty much what life was like for 20 years. So there was a point where I just didn't understand why I felt so unsettled and why I didn't feel happy or fulfilled in my life, even though externally my life looked amazing. I mean, there was a beautiful family, there was a husband that loved me, and beautiful children, a house, cars, a career. I mean, it looked amazing. And I would sit there and go, well, why am I so miserable? And so I think that's what I needed to figure out. And it wasn't fair, really, to keep anybody else in my misery. That's why I had to leave, because I had to figure out why I was not feeling like myself. So this process after my divorce really resulted in so much healing for me, understanding my childhood traumas, understanding the traumas that medicine actually had inflicted on me for so many years. I talk about it in my book. I said from the very beginning, I felt like there was a mistress in my marriage. Medicine. She was always there. She was demanding. She wanted all of my time and energy. It's really hard to have a relationship with another human being when medicine is taking up all of your time. So
one of the things is like we have this life in medicine where we have to behave a certain way. There's some responsibilities, and then separating that behavior, from where you're in the hospital or the clinic where you wear some of these hats of nothing's going to happen to anybody under my care, and everybody has to follow these rules, because if it doesn't happen, something bad's going to happen. And then bringing that same way of communicating into your marriage, into your house, when they have different expectations, it's quite the challenge for most of us.
Oh, it really is. And I say that it's not even different hats we wear. I feel like they're different masks. I used to go to work every day and I just wasn't me. So I was somebody else. I had to put on a mask. I had to be somebody that I wasn't, because I couldn't just really be me, because the real me probably, would be thought of a certain way by certain people. But I have to say, towards the end of my career, I was just starting to be the real me. I stopped caring, I think. But we feel like we have to stay within these confines of what is expected of us and how our personality is supposed to be. Granted, I feel that as long as you're professional, which I'm always professional no matter what, I think I could have really shown a little bit more of my personality throughout my career in medicine. I know that now in retrospect, but I didn't see it before.
And talking about retrospect, what can you tell us, if you were going to talk to other women who are physicians who are in the same situation where they don't find themselves, now that you've looked back, is there anything that you would tell them in terms of tips? I wish I would have done this, or I did this. You should do this thing if you're thinking about exploring yourself and exploring a potential divorce for your life.
Well, I mean, I'm not pro-divorce, so I think I want to stop and say that first. I mean, I really love the idea of marriage, and I love the idea of being with somebody forever and ever. I love that concept, but just I think it's so important to know yourself first. That would be the only change that I would have made. Maybe in retrospect, I would have waited a little longer and understood myself better, but nobody told me that. So I had no idea. I mean, I have parents that have been married for 55 years. So, it's just you only know what you see. But that's what I would tell my children. Make sure you understand yourself before you before you get into a relationship with somebody else, because it'll go much better that way.
Yeah, and that's also an evolution, a transformation, of getting to know yourself and getting more, which knowledge that we acquire every single day. So it's really important so that you're truthful to yourself and you're truthful to that other person as well, emotionally and mentally, that you can give to them as much as, they would deserve or not, right? From all these experiences, from your cancer, having a family, having a divorce, and all these clinics, Beauty Unbound was born. And you went through that process of writing a book. Let's talk a little bit about just, the aspects of book writing. You have the inspiration. When did you sit down? And then after that, okay, I have this idea. Let's organize this. How did that happen in your case?
Well, I have to say there were about 7 or 8 renditions of this book before I really decided on what it was that I was trying to say. And finally, I sat down with a ghostwriter. I actually talk about this in my book because I didn't have the time to write, so I hired a ghostwriter, and that's what I did. I was like, all right, let me outsource this. And interestingly enough, she really helped me at least figure out that I had many stories, and that's why it didn't ever make sense. She's like, you have to pick. You have too many storylines in this one book. Pick something that you really want to say and go with that. So she wound up ghostwriting my book. And honestly, I read that book and it was like my life, something that was pre-prescribed for me. And it didn't have the grit. It didn't have the flavor. It just was bland. And I literally took it and I deleted it and started over. So it's funny because I talk about them. I say that in my book. I just hit delete and I said, this is not what I'm writing about, because I'm not going to have somebody write my story again. I wanted to write my own story. So during COVID, I mean, luckily she had really helped to organize everything for me. That was helpful because I think it's hard figuring out how to organize a book properly. But because I had the organization at that point, then I was able to add that flavor. And the biggest compliment I've gotten is from people who actually know me. They've told me that it's like I'm talking to them because it's in my voice. And I don't think a ghostwriter can effectively write something in your voice exactly the way that you'd want.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Writing a book, you write the book, you put your soul into it, you put all these stories, and then you put your message through it. But at the end of the day, if you really want the book to be successful doing somehow, it has to be like a whole plan around it, right? So you wrote your book, and then you need to have a strategy. What are you going to do with this book? Is this like, you know what? I wrote a book. I'm happy with my book. Amen. Here, I put it there on the shelf. Or what do I do with that book? So from an entrepreneurship point of view, you're a speaker, and then you're a consultant, you're a coach. And what was your goal with writing Beauty Unbound? And how have you planned to make it successful in that way?
So to be honest with you, my real goal for putting out Beauty Unbound was really to share something that would help other women. So it wasn't really about a big marketing strategy or anything. That was really just came from my heart that I wanted to have it there. And, yes, I'll probably wind up doing, more strategy around it. But right now I'm really focusing on a few things. Number one, not my career, believe it or not. I'm actually focusing on what I am passionate about and what makes me happy in life. For the first time in my life, that is my goal. And I am not chasing money because I don't believe that brings you happiness. I mean, I was making very good money as an ENT surgeon and I was very unhappy. And I'm just following my passion. So I am literally following my passion and the money just will flow. That's my belief. And I've been doing that. I'm in the process of figuring out where I want to live right now because I've been here in West Palm Beach for about 1.5 years. And I said to somebody the other day, I said, it's a much better fit than St. Augustine or Jacksonville was. but it's still not 100%. So I'm going to go explore for the next couple of months and figure out where I would like to be. And that exploring involves going to California, probably going to a couple of different places. I'm going to be in Europe for a month, and I'm speaking in Europe. So, I'm not really, as a physician, it was always about do, get this done, get that done, achieve, achieve, achieve. That's what I don't do in my life. It's not about achieving. It's about living now. And I'm not so concerned about achieving. I think everything will just work out the way that it's supposed to, as long as I follow my heart. So I'm really focusing on figuring out what that is.
Well, talking about fun stuff and dedicating yourself to fun stuff, I want to say, you are the first female physician car racing driver that I met who's also doing Krav Maga. So let's talk about that part of you finding car racing for your life and how you've developed that part of your life.
Well, that was an interesting story because my ex-husband is a car enthusiast, and he just loves cars and always has. And I really like cars too. He just knows so much more about cars than I ever did. So he started doing it because he loved driving fast, and we figured this was safer than him doing this on the road. So then he started to investigate that, and he'd go for these track weekends, and I never went with him. And one day he said, I think you might actually really like it. You should come with me. I said, okay. So I went, and surprisingly, I really did enjoy it. I just was there observing what he was doing. And then I think I went with him a few times, and I said, you know what? I think I'd like to try to drive and race. So then we got the car equipped for me, because you have to have all these safety things. And so we got everything ready, and he's just such a car guy that he, of course, got everything ready for me, which was wonderful. And I went, and I really loved it. It was so exhilarating, and it was fun. And I loved the people that we were talking to and meeting. So, and you could go to different locations and go to different tracks. So that was just an amazing time. I did it for a few years. And then when COVID happened, I stopped going. So I've just gotten out of it since then and decided to do something else. But in all honesty, I would like to go back and do it again. It was really fun.
Maybe in Europe, you never know, right?
Oh,
When
yeah.
you're out there.
I have a feeling I'll do it again someday.
Then you have also been working towards, a higher belt on Krav Maga, which, as I understand, is the Israeli Armed Forces martial arts, correct? How
Yes.
did you find Krav Maga?
So it was in Jacksonville. I started doing kickboxing, and because it's such a great form of exercise when you're doing kickboxing. And in that class, they had Krav Maga, and I've never even heard of that. My children were black belts in Taekwondo, and I thought Taekwondo was nice, but it just wasn't really for me. It wasn't the style that I liked. So I was considering jujitsu or something like that, but I didn't know what Krav Maga was. And when they explained to me, and this is what probably did it, they're the two masters. You have to be at least a 5th degree black belt to be called master. So it was two masters, their husband and wife. I think at the time he might have been a 6th degree. She was a 5th degree. I don't remember what the situation was, but she was small. She was about 5 feet tall, and she was scary. And watching her in action, I was just in awe. And they told me, you don't have to be large to be able to defend yourself. And that's where I got interested, because I thought, you know what? I want to be this woman that is able to travel, do whatever I want. I mean, not that I put myself in dangerous situations, but I want to be able to protect myself in case anything were to happen. And plus, this is a great way of getting extremely fit. So I took a few classes, and I was hooked. I started taking private lessons, and I did it there for a while. And luckily, when I moved here, there was a instructor that also is with their group down here, not too far from where I live. So I was able to just not skip a beat and just continue on. So at this point, I'm about to test for my red belt in September, and then the black is in January.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's fun.
Cool.
I love it. I have to say, I thought I would stop when I got my black belt, but I know I'm not going to. I'm going to go for multiple degrees. I don't think I'll ever stop. It's wonderful, and I love it so much.
So what has Krav Maga given you?
Empowerment. Really, I feel so empowered. I'm so strong. I didn't know that I was this strong. My instructor's probably 250 pounds, and will spar. I mean, he's a higher degree black belt. So, I mean, obviously he takes it easy on me, but there have been certain maneuvers where he says, I can't do anything. You don't understand. I'm bigger than you, but I cannot do anything. And there's this corkscrew maneuver that I love the most, is you actually literally can drop a large man on the ground very easily. And it's just crazy to me that I can actually do that with somebody who's double my weight.
Have you already been teaching that to somebody else?
No, I have not.
Okay, maybe I'll sign up for that.
Yes,
I'll sign up for your first class.
yeah, it's very fun.
So now you are going around the world speaking and coaching, and you have your message, the basic messages that you're sharing for women with Beauty Unbound. When you go somewhere, what are your main 3 messages that you want to bring to women? You talk about professional women and how we are, you talk about boxes, like being in this box and being defined and having to find yourself and all these things. So what 3 messages you want to focus on now, as you're looking where to live and taking the message to the world and still in that process of transformation for you?
I would say the first big one is to live unapologetically. We feel that we have to explain ourselves to other people. I know I've felt that all my life. If I did something that was a little not what was expected of me, I felt like I really needed to offer up some sort of explanation. I don't offer up any explanation anymore. I'm a grown woman and I do what I please. I don't really look for anybody's approval or disapproval. So I think in that same way that we really need to find ourselves, what makes us happy, and do it unapologetically. I would say the second thing would be to live passionately, because you could probably fly under the radar and just live a mediocre life and it'll be fine. But I was never pleased with that. So every time I feel like I'm living in some sort of mediocrity, I've got to change it up and go do something else. So that way, when we follow our passions, I think we put ourselves in a situation where we find ourselves and who we are a lot faster. And let's see, the last one would be, I would say probably follow your heart. I think so much of us, we're trapped in our mind about what we should do, how we should plan things out. I get more guidance from my intuition these days than my head. I stopped listening to my head quite a while ago. And not that I don't think about things, I don't want it to sound like that, but I'm very grounded in my spirituality now. Sometimes when I don't know what to do, I really don't make a decision. I just sit with it for a while. And it's interesting to me how in a week or 2, the answer just shows up and I know exactly what to do. And it's a more peaceful process for me, as opposed to what I did when all those years in medicine, where I used to force things. I never let anything come. I had to think everything through and it was exhausting. I find that things are peaceful now. I feel like I'm in a flow of finding what is next, and it just comes to me when it's supposed to. I hope that makes sense.
It does. And I'm thinking about that 5-year-old girl there who wanted to heal her father and who has been able to accomplish so many things. Is there anything that you would tell that 5-year-old girl right now? Like, this is how your life will be, or this is how it's been, and anything for the future for that girl?
I think the biggest thing I tell the 5-year-old girl is that it's okay to change your mind and it's okay to change directions. So many of us are taught that we make a decision, we have to stick with it our whole entire lives. That's a lot of pressure for decisions that we make at a young age. I mean, I was 5 years old. What did I really know about what it entailed? I didn't know myself. I didn't know what was involved in being a physician. I knew nothing. So it's okay. I think that it's great when you make a decision of some sort, because you have to start with something. But at the end of the day, if that decision doesn't serve you or it doesn't feel like it was the right one, there's no shame in changing your mind and making a different decision and choosing something different.
So for those who want to work with you and want to find you, how do they do this? And, like if they want to see you as a speaker or as a consultant for spas or as a coach, how do they find you?
They can find me on my website. It's drkalpanasundar.com. They can also find me on LinkedIn, which is Dr. Kalpana Sundar, or on Instagram at kalpana.unbound.
Well, thank you for being with us. Anything else that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share? I asked you like everything, I think.
I think we've talked about my whole life story here at this point. But I'm happy to share. I mean, I always say my life's an open book, and that's why I wrote a book.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you for being here, and we'll see you then.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, guys, that's it for today. Hope that you learned some with us. Don't be afraid to transform your life and reinvent yourself. You can learn more about how to create and design your physician life by subscribing to our channel. Share it with others. Give us 5 stars. You can also learn more about participating on programs that will facilitate your reinvention as well. Check out our website, maxsalary.com. That is maxallure.com. We want to also thank Dr. Kalpana Sundar for being here with us today. And if you want to work with her, you can find her at her website, drkalpanasundar.com. That is drkalpanasundar.com. I hope that you join us next week, and we'll see you then. Have a great time. Thanks. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.